Delta Airlines has the market talking thanks to concerns about rising oil prices and a 25% stock price dip since July. But is the pullback overblown? Stay tuned as we explore Delta's recent Q3 results, breaking records, and a robust dividend outlook. Let's get into it. Today, we're taking a look at Delta Airlines and its impact on the market. Is the recent guidance cut justified, or is there more to the story that meets the eye? We have Chris and Thomas with us today to unpack it all. So let's get into it here. Delta sent shockwaves through the market, as we've seen when it cut its Q3 guidance. So Chris, if you would, can you shed some light on the influence of rising oil prices for us and the 25% pullback in stock price that's happened since July?
Sure, Lacey. I mean, really, this comes down to a simple math problem that every investor understands. As the price for a company like Delta of the jet fuel, as that price gets higher, they have to pass that cost along, or try as best they can to pass that cost along to their consumers. So they raise prices on flights and things like that. And when they announced that that was going to be happening, investors started to price that into the stock, and that's why the stock moved down about 25%. Now, the interesting thing is, the company just reported, and they had a better quarter than expected, where they beat estimates. I think they beat on both the top and bottom line. Am I right, Thomas?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah, and so now the stock is priced pretty well because they took a lot of that excess out of the stock with the 25% downturn.
All right, so Delta Airlines did make the decision to suspend its distribution at the start of the pandemic. So I kind of want to know more about how this impacted the company's financial health. And just so our viewers know, they can text MarketBeat to 68285 to get SMS breaking news alerts for the stock. So you would get information like the one that I just shared, or for any other stocks that are on your watch list, completely free. But so back to it, Thomas, tell us more about the impact there. Chris, feel free to jump in on this one as you see fit too.
Yeah, right. They suspended the dividend back at the start of the pandemic to preserve capital. It's a cash-intensive business. They had to lean heavily on debt to get through the crisis. Business fell like 90% at one point in 2022, so their cash flow was greatly impeded. But today, the cash is generating mad amounts of cash. Cash flow is fine, and they're working to correct the damage. So they've been paying down their debt. They've been paying their dividend. Over the next few quarters, I expect to see the debt continue to come down and set the company up for substantial, if not aggressive, dividend increases.
Yeah, I mean, in addition, like Thomas said, this is it's a cash-intensive business, and the airlines are notorious for having tight margins, even in the best of times. And in 2020, airlines didn't even know how long they would be grounded. So, I think Delta, let's keep in mind, Delta is reinstating the dividend, and they weren't the only airline to suspend the dividend. I mean, United, Southwest, American, they've all suspended the dividends during that time. And I believe American, for one, hasn't even reinstated theirs yet. So, Delta's maybe a little bit ahead of the game there.
Great perspective there, guys. Now, Delta's Q3 results, their outlook suggests that the leading air carrier in the U.S., Thomas, can you share more about the record-setting revenue here? I mean, Delta reported $15.49 billion in net revenue for the quarter. So go ahead, break that down for us. What are the factors that are driving this strong performance?
Well, it's a combination of pent-up pandemic demand and then the return to work. So they've got strong business domestically and internationally. Business is being supported by premium seats and also loyalty programs. So it's showing that Delta's really delivering for its customers. The big takeaway right now for me is that business is stabilizing, still growing really, and it's above 2019 levels. So I see no reason why the stock should not continue or should not rebound from its current lows.
Okay, so if you would, can you help me gain a better understanding of Delta's debt reduction? So the company has paid down a substantial amount of debt this year. So what are the implications of something like this, and how has it affected the company's financial stability? Chris, can you help me out with that?
Sure. So Thomas alluded to it earlier. Delta is a capital-intensive business. All airlines are.
Mm-hmm.
And frequently, the airlines rely on debt to fuel their growth, to buy new planes and do all the different things that they do. when money was cheap just a few years ago, nobody paid that much attention to it because it was just money was cheap, borrowing was cheap. Companies had access to capital. There was no issue with them refinancing that capital at the same or even maybe even a lower rate than they initially took the loan out for. And now the tables have completely turned on that. And you don't want to be a company that's caught on the wrong side of that, where you're trying to refinance at a higher rate than what you originally took out the debt for. And so by paying down their debt, Delta's put themselves in a good position, or they're getting their balance sheet in pretty good shape so that they're not turning over and refinancing debt at higher and higher levels.
Right. I mean, I'm sorry. The cost of debt is a huge factor right now. But even more importantly, these airlines have to get ready for the next crisis. It's going to come sooner or later. If they're highly levered with poor cash flow, they're not going to be able to survive. So it's really in Delta's best interest to continue paying down the debt, even though it's also in the best interest of shareholders.
Thomas, you had mentioned that Delta stock is showing support at a critical level that's near $36. How significant is this pivot point, and what does this potential support level hold for the stock's future price action?
Yeah, right. Well, it was showing support at that level about 10 days ago when I first wrote that article. Since then, the price has fallen through that level. And I see it heading back down to the recent lows. We could see another couple percentage points shaved off of this stock before it begins to rebound. But I think that when it moves down to that critical support level, that we should see support kick in and a rebound begin.
Chris, Delta Airlines is among MarketBeat's top-rated stocks. So what is the analyst consensus there?
So they're very bullish on the stock. There's 13 analysts that MarketBeat tracks that cover Delta. They have a consensus buy rating of about $54.40 on the stock. At least they did a couple of days ago. That was the last time I checked. And here's the thing. Some of them have been lowering their price targets for Delta, but I shouldn't say all, I think most of them that have been lowering their price targets are lowering them at a level that's above that consensus target. So that's very bullish for Delta. That just says analysts are very bullish on the stock.
All right, guys, why don't you both give us a quick recap of the takeaways that investors need to keep in mind when they're considering Delta as a possible investment? Thomas, what do you have to share?
Well, I think Delta is a blue chip quality stock. It's a market leader. It's gaining share. It's proving to have utility for its customers and clients. I think it's a good buy and hold stock. I think in the near term, though, oil prices are a concern. So margins may see more pressure that may keep the stock moving lower or moving sideways in the near to midterm. But I think long term, Delta is a great buy and should provide investors with a pretty solid return.
Chris, what are you leaving us with?
Yeah, if I was going to nitpick anything, because I can't really disagree with anything that Thomas said, if I was going to nitpick one thing, I would say Delta has a significantly fewer amount of international flights than some of the other carriers. And right now, the strength in the airline industry is international flights as Europe and other destinations have reopened. However, given the general climate surrounding geopolitical events, that might be swinging back to domestic travel. And if it does, then Delta has a big advantage there as far as some of the competition.
All right. Well, as we've seen, Delta has managed to maintain positive margins despite challenges like rising fuel costs. Keep your eyes on the horizon and on our channel, of course, for the latest insights on Delta's future growth. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can keep you up to date on the market. Go ahead, check out the links that I've included down below for all of these resources. Of course, don't forget to comment. Let us know what your thoughts are on Delta stock. Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk soon.